My name is Julian Reyes. I was 24 years old and studying history at a university in San Diego. Life was expensive. Scholarships and part-time jobs alone weren't enough. So in my third year, I started working the night shift at a historic boutique hotel downtown. The hotel was struggling to find staff at the time, and I took advantage of this gap. The owner of the hotel was an elderly man named Robert Whitaker. He was wealthy but humble. I sat down with him and spoke honestly. I wanted the freedom to choose my shifts so I could attend my classes. I also spoke several languages: Spanish, French, and a little German. In return for these skills, I would receive an extra monthly bonus. We made a deal, and that's how my story began. Robert cared about his employees. Whenever he was in town, he would spend time with us, take the staff out for meals. Sometimes a few of us from the front desk would even ride in his luxury car to fancy dinners. I didn't feel just like an employee. I felt like part of a team. Nights were quiet. The workload was light. During my free time, I would take care of the morning shift's tasks ahead of time, organizing everything that needed to be done. No one expected me to do it, but I did. Because the environment was warm, peaceful, but no order lasts forever. One day, Robert handed the hotel over to his son, Elliot Whitaker. From the first moment, I felt something was wrong. Elliot was a completely different person. He never smiled, never greeted anyone, and gave employees cold, piercing looks. And in those looks, I could sense a particular disgust toward me. I never fully learned why, but I knew he hated me. Maybe he resented the fact that I was still working under my old contract, choosing my shifts, and earning bonuses. Maybe he just wanted to assert his authority, but over time, it became personal. At first, he was just distant. Then he started mentioning my name in meetings with dismissive remarks. And then that wasn't enough. One night, I logged into the manager's account to prepare the files for the morning. This was part of my regular duties. I had the login information because I handled the paperwork and reports in the mornings. But that night, an email caught my eye. My name was in the subject line. I couldn't resist. I opened it. The email stated that Elliot wanted me gone, but he couldn't fire me outright. My old contract still protected me legally and ensured I would receive severance. Plus, if he got rid of me, the shift schedule would collapse. I was the only consistent night shift worker. Yet there it was, an email chain slowly weaving a plot against me. Further down in the email, I saw messages involving several employees and the hotel manager. They were supporting Elliot, targeting me. Some complained that I was hogging the night shift because those shifts paid better, offering a night bonus. But I had secured that right months ago through my own effort. The manager was more cautious. He wasn't clearly on their side, but he did say I should be kept, for now, to avoid disrupting the system. Elliot, however, was openly hostile, determined to break me down so I would quit. Looking at the screen, I felt a lump in my stomach. People smiled at me, but behind my back, they were setting me up. Just days before, I had shared coffee with someone who had now written in an email, "Julian needs to slowly be phased out." That night, I realized the old order was completely gone, but I didn't close the computer. I didn't delete the email. Instead, I forwarded it to myself. Then I took screenshots. Then I printed them out and folded the pages. After that, I called my uncle. It was 2 a.m. He was a lawyer. And now, I wasn't fighting alone. Before I forget, if you like my story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. After discovering the scheme that Elliot and a few employees had orchestrated behind my back, an indescribable fury surged within me. But my first instinct wasn't to fight. I was conscious. I wanted every move to be documented, because this was now a battle, and I was going to play this game by the rules. For the first few days, I didn't let anything show. I kept working at the same pace, but as if things weren't bad enough already, the situation slowly started to change. They began with seemingly harmless jokes. They mocked my haircut, my shirt, my tone of voice. People who smiled at me laughed behind my back when I turned away. Once, when I went to the restroom, I found a note left on my desk. "You don't seem suited for the night shift, Julian. You look too tired. Maybe the morning shift would suit you better." These taunts gradually escalated into something worse. While other employees used to take over any unfinished tasks after the night shift, they now deliberately dumped all the unpleasant work onto me. Kitchen cleaning, organizing the storage room, trash duty. Tasks we used to share equally suddenly became mine alone. There was no direct order, but the message was clear. Either I accepted it, or I quit. One night, while looking for my spare shirt, I noticed my locker door was left open in the dressing room. I looked inside. It was gone. No one had seen anything. There were no cameras, but the silence spoke volumes. It had been intentionally taken. My uncle, my lawyer, told me one thing. "Gather evidence, Julian. Write down who said what, when, and how. Take notes. Keep records." So I carried a small notebook with me. I recorded what each employee said to me, when extra work was dumped on me, and which day my belongings disappeared. And every night, I scanned emails. The plot against me continued. They were still scheming to wear me down, break me, and force me to quit. No one was attacking me outright, but I was slowly decaying inside. Elliot still couldn't find a direct reason to fire me, but his enforcers had started making open threats. One night, a front desk employee named Jack told me to empty the trash bin. "You're just a night watchman here anyway, Julian. Might as well do something useful," he said, scanning me with his eyes. I paused. I smiled. "I only do the tasks outlined in my contract, Jack," I replied. His expression tightened instantly. Then, he muttered sharply, "Leeches like you are the reason work ethic is dead here." That comment confirmed the trap was coming. That night, when I got home, I sat down and wrote everything in detail. Date, time, what was said, who was present. I even started recording audio on some nights. The evidence was stacking up, but they had to make the first move. I had to stay on defense. A week later, I was summoned to the manager's office. The reason? Avoiding tasks outside the job description and damaging teamwork. But all I had done was stop doing extra work. I had simply stopped doing things that weren't part of my contract. For years, I had gone above and beyond, but I had reached my limit. That day, I was officially fired. But I didn't walk out with my head down, because in my pocket, I had folders full of emails, voice recordings, and notes. The next morning, in the hotel lobby, my lawyer handed the hotel manager the documents. And then he said, "My client was just doing his job, but you organized a psychological warfare campaign against him. The game is over." Faces dropped. Silence followed. And that's when my war officially began. What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments. The day I was fired, Elliot was abroad. He had gone on an expensive ski vacation in France. Meanwhile, I was in San Diego, walking from office to office with my now official termination papers. I didn't collapse as they had expected, because this was only the first half of the game. The hotel management had fired me for poor performance after refusing to work overtime. Yet those tasks had never been part of my contract. For years, I had done them out of goodwill. But this time, I deliberately and knowingly refused. Because I had seen their plan. They wanted to pressure me into resigning on my own. But I made the final move first. I turned their own game against them, targeting the gaps they had left exposed. The next morning, together with my uncle, Lucas Moreno, we officially initiated the legal process. We compiled a comprehensive file, including forwarded emails, screenshots, printed documents, and secretly recorded conversations. The case wasn't just about wrongful termination. It was about systematic mobbing, contract violations, and an organized attack on employee rights. When Lucas submitted the file to the authorities, the hotel's lawyers jumped in. The initial reaction was panic. The hotel manager turned pale upon seeing the contents. Elliot's vacation in France was abruptly cut short. He returned to the U.S., furious. Before the trial, they tried to pressure me into settling, but I wasn't rushing. Time was now on my side. We waited calmly until the court date was set. In the meantime, we didn't leak anything to the media. Everything proceeded quietly and methodically, within legal boundaries. The hotel's reputation, its star ratings and tourist guides, maybe those wouldn't immediately take a hit from this lawsuit. But internally, rot had begun. Finally, the first settlement offer arrived, severance pay plus an additional payout. But my uncle warned me it was just a smokescreen. When the amount was updated and presented again, we accepted. The money wasn't just enough to finish university. It was enough to support me for several years after graduation without needing to work. But I still couldn't forget those emails I had read in that dark office. The people who had targeted me simply because I earned too much, who had conspired against me because I had a strong contract. I took the money, thanked them, stayed silent, but I never forgot. And at that moment, my real revenge plan began. This time, Elliot wasn't the only target. This time, the target was the hotel itself. Over years of working night shifts in that empty lobby, I had unknowingly been collecting information, observations, records, violations of regulations. Every small note now became part of a massive file. Illegal renovations in the attic, violations of health codes in the kitchen, breaches of historical preservation laws, unaccounted for money flows. I had documented everything. Now I began sending this information to the relevant agencies one by one. Each email contained clear statements, photos, and documents. Every line carried years of patience, silence, and now newly unleashed power. Not just the hotel's name, but its very foundation was about to shake. Elliot had wanted me to lose not just my job, but my dignity. But now it was his turn to lose his name, his legacy, his hotel. Because even when I was silent, I had been preparing. And now, I was no longer silent. What do you think I should have done to Elliot? The price for what the hotel had done to me wouldn't be paid with severance alone. Every hour they made me endure had to be repaid, and that price wouldn't be settled merely with money. It had to be paid in loss, shame, and downfall. That's why I decided not to strike where I had left off, but at their weakest point, the rules. Over years of night shifts, I had silently collected details that no one paid attention to. Employee negligence, security gaps, hygiene failures, even structural violations in the building. I had it all. This wasn't just a historic building. It was protected by the state. Elliot received substantial grants every month because of its classified heritage status. But he had renovated the property without authorization, made alterations against regulations. Each one was a separate violation. With the help of my uncle, who was a lawyer, we compiled the documents. Photos, old blueprints, The current state, hidden renovations, health, fire safety, building permits, taxes, employee rights. Every relevant institution received a separate complaint file. The matter was no longer just my personal lawsuit. It had become a state issue. First, the health inspectors arrived, then the fire safety team. Soon after, municipal building inspectors. Then the Historical Preservation Board. Within a month, the hotel was completely surrounded by investigations. Authorities discovered the renovations Elliot had secretly carried out while away. None of the necessary permits existed. The fire exits were improperly constructed. The kitchen had major hygiene violations. Employee records were incomplete. Some workers were uninsured. Because he had damaged a historic site, Elliot had to repay the government grant with interest. He faced heavy fines for illegal renovations. The hotel was temporarily shut down. His luxury apartment was sealed off. Guests canceled their reservations. The hotel made headlines. Scandal at a historic hotel in the heart of San Diego. With the news article came an avalanche of negative Google reviews. Dark, unhealthy, unreliable. The reputation Elliot had once bought with money could no longer be salvaged, even with more money. The hotel lost value day by day. Revenues plummeted. Debts rose. In the end, Elliot had no choice but to sell the hotel. And those co-workers, the ones who smiled at me while stabbing me in the back, they all lost their jobs. Maybe a few undeserving ones were caught in the fallout, but no one had spoken up for me in those dark days. In my eyes, silence made them just as guilty as the ones who had actively tormented me. But the final blow to the story was something else entirely. Records of who accompanied Elliot on the nights he stayed at the hotel were documented. Security footage, room records. A few familiar faces matched local escort agency business cards. Normally, that wouldn't have mattered. But Elliot was married, and his wife had believed that her husband, the son of the hotel's original owner, was a respectable businessman. An ex-employee who had worked at the hotel but left before everything unfolded still remembered Elliot's wife's email address. I sent her the files. What she did with them remains unknown. But a few months later, news of Elliot's divorce surfaced online. A quiet yet devastating strike had landed perfectly. That day, as I walked past the hotel, I lifted my head. The shutters were down. The historic building had fallen silent. Holding my coffee in one hand, I let a small smile spread across my face. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply justice itself. If you enjoyed my revenge story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe.